Can you hear me from here online? If anyone's there?
I see Brett on the 12.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thanks for the opportunity to chat with you about what we're doing in experience engineering at Ride a Hat. I think you'll see a number of common themes that were mentioned by the other presenters today, but I thought I would just start with our philosophy on how we've been approaching AI opportunities in our organization so far. Same as you heard before, this is all about assistance and augmentation, not replacement. We've really tried to be very transparent in a number of ways to help allay the fears and the anxiety that's just associated with AI in general at this point. We've all also agreed that AI is not an optimal solution for every single business problem we have. We can't AI ourselves out of everything. Automation might be right, it could be a content thing, there's lots of other levers for us to use. We've been really trying to choose the right ones where AI makes the most sense. I mentioned transparency. That is core value, core to what we're doing, not only in how we've built it, what data is used, but also when you are seeing something, either as a TSC or a customer that had AI touch it. We want that to be clear and visible. And measurement, absolutely non-negotiable. We can be creative in measures, but you've got to have a baseline of some kind. Otherwise, you cannot definitively claim up or down. Okay, I'm going to jump right in and share a couple of specific solutions that we have in place or in flight. So the first one is our recommended content re-ranking. So this is specific to the troubleshooting workflow in our customer portal. And I'm going to actually show you this one in a minute, but I'm going to just walk you through how we did this, how we approached this. This was our very first project. This was a part-time effort across 4 or 5 different folks with different skill sets from our existing team. And we partnered with the IBM research team on some of this as well. So opportunity, issue description, show me the 10 most relevant KCS solutions. In our portal, it already does that, but it's using normal search capabilities. Let's just augment that and see what we can do here. You see the measurements there. We know right from the beginning, we have baselines. These are the things we are looking at. So to get started, we set up a corpus, which we use to then fine tune and test or evaluate a number of models. So for this one, we actually looked at 5 different models, the benefit of the research team. Not all of those models are out and about. And so we were able to see through a measure called recall, which is like relevant results divided by all results returned, right? So this is about improving relevance of what's shown. And we were able to do that by establishing pairs, question, right answer for the model. And so we did that with this ground truth that I'm noting here. And we were able to do that because we have a flag for linked KCS. So to the case, this was the answer, is exact. And so that proved to be very, very important in helping the model understand what the right answer is for a specific question. Positive results. That was offline evaluation. And we did the same thing with our current search capability, which gave us the baseline recall. And we saw about almost a full point improvement with the model that we ultimately chose to go forward with. We're gonna take risk with a little bit of caution on the side. And so we did that by delivering this as an A/B test first, but directly into the customer portal. We did not test it internally first. We just went there. We figured that we would see pretty quickly if something went drastically wrong. And we had failover configurations in place so that it actually wouldn't have even required a code push to turn it off if something went poorly. We did that for a month, and it was an equal split 50-50 on re-ranking versus traditional search. We handed off the data that we gathered from that to our wonderful data analysts who did all their cool statistical things. And we had statistically significant improvement. And we could actually see that in, operational data of a 1 percentage point increase just in that month in case deflection. I'm saying case deflection, this has been a really specific portion of our workflow. So from troubleshooting in the customer portal, where we provide recommended content as part of the beginning to create a case, the action. And it's not all about the model. We got the model working. We felt confident in what it was able to do. It's out there. We've switched over 100%. It's re-ranking is the new normal now for search. We went forward with a number of UI improvements after that. So just literally changing what the interface looks like and how we highlight the fact that those results are dynamic now, and notating that they come with AI, or they're produced by, our use of AI.
So it is real-time re-ranking?
It is. It is. I'm gonna go ahead.
Mandy, do you want to comment on what the current deflection rate is?
I'm gonna show them on the slide next.
Better, all right.
Oh,
It's a lot
all
higher.
right. You see that one?
Yes.
Okay, so if you went right there and you logged in, you go to our troubleshooting workflow, this is where you have landed. What's an issue right now, Scott?
Can't boot.
We need more.
So these are some of the the UI changes where you can see we're providing tips actually on using more natural language, not just the 2-word things to help with relevant. Did you say can't
Can't boot. Yeah, like I have a can't boot issue. It's kind of.
Yep. So you can see it's a live search powered by, so I'm like right in the middle. That little bar there, it's actually powered by one of our products, OpenShift AI, so bonus to kind of call that out. And if you kept typing more stuff, I don't know if any of this will do anything. But basically every space, it should be, if it has anything new, it will update. There you go. So it's in real time. And then if you continue, we move it off to the side. And this is where you have additional recommendations, one more shot, and you can go to the case. And so there's more information that we collect here, and there can be more recommendations that we provide. But really,
Does it also, let's say you clicked on several of those recommended solutions, does it automatically input that into the case too? Or does user view these these articles?
it does not do that,
Okay.
right? It will send,
Oh,
yeah, so if they open a case, it will pull from this unique session ID on the web, basically, right? And it will put the top 10 as suggested resources in the case interface for the TSC as well.
We have the metadata to capture if you went to it, how long you stayed on it, et cetera. We just have not integrated because we're
It's
still
not
in Salesforce
connected.
Classic. And,
Yeah.
there's no value in me integrating with Salesforce Classic at this data point. We're about 2025 on target for Lightning. So.
Okay.
So that's what it looks like out and working. Go back to your regularly scheduled program, and here is your money shot. So really, really short time frame on this. That's why you hear the move fast all the time. Just iterate. We first put the A/B test in right before Thanksgiving. We had our full cutover to prod January 3rd when we returned from the New Year break. And then we made those UI tweaks. We've changed nothing about the model itself since then. We had the UX team do the UI, and you see just the huge lift. It's not all about the model. There are many levers to pull here.
That goes to your point, Tracy. You've got to get people to interact with the data. Otherwise, you won't have the outcome. What did they say statistically? This can get us up to like almost 30% deflection or something like that.
Yeah, there's a calculation they have called uplift in statistical analysis, and so the uplift was like 24%, and all the analysts are like, oh my God, and we're like, whoo, guess that sounds good. It's like anything over 10 is like incredible, and it speaks to sort of exponential potential over time with that solution, assuming everything continues the way it was. This was a really short A/B period.
So how long, so what was the actual time from the idea until, was that the November timeframe? Or
July is when we started
Okay.
on this.
Yeah, we didn't know what we were doing. We were just starting.
Nope.
Like, hey, let's just do some cool stuff.
So in that short period of time, this is the percentage of deflection that you've experienced and the potential.
And this is
We're up to about
just
12%.
in the troubleshooting, this is just in the troubleshooting workflow. We have plans to expand to other places, but you see here the measurement, the importance of the measurement. That is your impact. And we have all of that because we've created a measurement library. Basically, it has the SQL, it has the source, what we use as the source for that data, and then the rolling, we do a rolling 13-month calculation right now, which sort of helps spread out over the peaks and valleys for comparison purposes. Okay, so that's what we've got in production. And we're now focused on a 3-step process to get us to net new content creation for our KCS. And I think Jennifer said they haven't quite gotten here, but we're taking a stepwise approach to this. And so number 1, we have completed our first Gen AI sort of pilot, and we're using an open source Mistral model, and we're actually running that on the publicly available watsonx.ai cloud service, testing it out, see what happens. It was already available there to host, and we don't have to manage any PII or KCS. So it was pretty plug and play, easy to do that. KCS by definition don't have summary in them. So the challenge here was, how do we teach the model what a good summary is? Right, so the way that we tackled that from the offline evaluation strategy is we created a little web app tool that we rolled out to our KCS coaches. They had 2 weeks. They could query by the KCS ID for anything. It could be their most favorite ones, the most used ones in their SBR, whatever they want. We wanted 5 ratings from them. And that would get us to a level that we were looking for about 200 ratings to use to help us train the model, fine tune a little bit. And so we had the model generate the AI, the snippet, AI on the brain. We had the model generate the snippet on demand, display it in that web app, and on a 1 to 4 scale, our KCS coaches evaluated what was produced against the full KCS on the other side of the window. And they were able to give us feedback about why it was good or bad. And so anything that was a 3 or 4, we were super happy to see. We did some analysis on the 1s and 2s just to see what was going wrong. Were there any patterns was it happening in a particular product? Was it something about the age of the KCS? Who knows? So we still have lots of opportunity to tweak and improve, but I think it was over 70% were either a 3 or a 4 with no training done at all. Just open source model, plug it in and go. So we are in the process of bringing snippets to production. This is important, and I'm going to talk about this later. What we've done, the approach we've taken here is to cluster our use cases by capability and data that we already have and have confidence in. So we're using content. This will enhance SEO because our KCS is behind authentication. So if you're on any search engine out there, you don't see anything other than the KCS title. And so once this indexes over a little bit of time, they'll see the snippet. And that should help you choose, we hope, help them choose the most relevant item that we're presenting to them. Same thing will happen in our customer portal. It just becomes a part of the KCS. We are actually batch generating these. I think they told me if they did it like sequentially, it would take like 27 days or something to do. So we're parallelizing as much as we can, and we may just do the most frequently used ones up front and then get through the others, maybe generate them on demand, but to keep the, we're not gonna dynamically create them. So every time, so even if you were in the web app in our evaluative tool, every time you click generate, it's a little bit different. So what we're gonna do is store what we have, and then we've, through our implementation to production, we have built in ways to edit the summary if necessary. So if someone sees something that's like wildly crazy, because AI can do that, this scenario is pretty low risk because we actually pass the whole KCS document, right? Then you're still linking directly to that document. Could the verbiage have been improved? I'm sure in some cases, right? But fairly low risk overall in doing this. And so this helps with, again, finding the right content and beginning to use our KCS in a different way. And really just understanding what it takes for us to call them good. So from there, we've started to dive into case summarization. Heard this one earlier. We think if we can solve this, you should basically be able, the Gen AI, should be able to draft a new KCS from the information that already exists in the case. Draft, not publish, draft it, run it to the appropriate SME for review and publish. But for case summarization, I think as you saw someone else present earlier, follow the sun is the target there for us as our first step. Really focused on handoff. And the tricky part here is that different fields in Salesforce are used differently across some of the teams and product focused areas. So how do we help the model understand what the salient information is? And then once we do that, how do we want to expose that? Are those like good to go as public comments? What kind of review do we want to have? Are there certain types of information that we'll suppress? There's obviously PII to deal with. So lots of consideration. This is our most complex use case so far, but we see really huge dividends in meeting both reduced effort for our TSCs, right? And smoothing out, preventing that sort of re-asking the question that's part of handover sometimes. And then ultimately reducing the time that they have to spend on developing new KCS for net new problems. Questions? Pause there for a moment. I've been blathering at you.
So all of this was minimal effort, well, definitely effort, but in terms of resourcing, like smaller teams focused on this and being able to rapidly deploy it with the little risk that you're, but just being a little aggressive there.
We're not afraid of the risk. I mean, that's
Exactly.
the challenge. I think
Yeah.
you got to make a decision on how risk averse you are, just go with it, but
Mhm.
Mandy, what you signed for me, right, so.
Yeah, I have 9 in total. I'm our chief of staff as well, so I do a couple other things now and then. And have some folks sort of focused on that kind of thing. So we have like 3 dedicated engineering folks, like a strategic leader, more like architectural and more on kind of the model side. A couple of a business analyst, a project manager, and more like what I call a product manager. So what is our portfolio of solutions? We have a product manager for data and one for AI. They overlap a lot. And we have sort of those engineers sit in the engineering team that's in our organization for digital and for all the tooling and platforms that are supporting our organization broadly. So they sit with their engineering buddies, but they are dedicated capacity for this work.
When we drive,
There's about a dozen altogether, I would say.
so we drive the incubate comes from, like, I drive incubate, she drive incubate as well, but predominantly, it's business, I can say, hey, what are the cool ideas? And we bring that from the ground up, there's no meritocracy, so I don't have to incubate creative ideas. We solicit it across the organization, collect them all, figure out what we want. We have to make decisions on it after that. And I have a business lead, maybe
Yeah,
one
we call them
office
business owners.
And he basically works pretty extensively to say, is it even a good idea? Is it worth it? Is there a value prop to go after this one as a target? Sometimes we'll even try to prove out a little bit of the base case to see is it even feasible, right? Because we targeted draft KCS, like it was an idea like a year ago, like, can we write draft KCS articles? People come to us and go, I get this blank page and I don't know what to start with. I'm like, well, KCS V6 is pretty standard, so why can't you just start writing? And they just can't do it, right? It's not their forte. So getting a draft article is a great idea to be able to go through, so.
So we have a prototyping, like the purpose of this more centralized team is not to do all the AI. We're not stopping anyone from doing AI. We're encouraging consistency where we can and appropriate use and per policy use, obviously, data privacy considerations, things like that. But we can't do everything, and nor are we trying to. And that's a very explicit thing that we talk about in our team. It really helps with being able to prioritize and manage scope.
So if I'm gonna productize something, I go to management right now. I'm trying to productize something.
So we heard from Cisco earlier about using the tool to suggest paths, but it's human-centric first. And but they weren't going to go into the KCS portion of things, right? They sort of felt that that was a separate entity. You're looking at KCS, which we look at generative ChatGPT type stuff for marketing, for everything. But yet we know that sometimes the content's mediocre. There's the hallucination thing, or sometimes it's good, or it's good enough.
Mm-hmm.
How are you validating it? And have you thought about allowing trusted roles in real-world situations to evaluate your content? I'm thinking of the efficiency aspect. So if let's say I'm a second-line manager and I'm helping out with a case, and I don't want the first-line people because we haven't really validated and sort of graded to the expectations of the content. But could that second-line manager go, okay, I'm having this problem, system boot up, whatever that thing is, I'm reading the article, hey, this article is pretty good, or let's send it back for review, or let me make some. Would you find efficiencies from trying to have that sort of hybrid approach as opposed to having reviewers over here who aren't in the trench and aren't really in context at the time?
Mm-hmm.
See where I'm going with that? Would you see benefit from doing something like that?
I think our reviewers will be, we haven't done it yet, but our plan is that we'll have some rules. So we also do some case tagging via traditional AI. It's not ML, it's not Gen AI. And so I think that there may be a way for us to use, basically just set up rules to route the drafted KCS to the most appropriate SME. So it's like deciding who that should be.
I almost look at it like KCS is sufficient to solve, right? So the person who solved the case knows whether the KCS itself is sufficient to solve. So it's really just validating the sense of something.
And that's what I was getting at, is could you kill two birds with one stone by doing real-time validation?
We're going to eventually tie like this draft KCS to a case in assessment like when we get there, and then you can't shut the case down to validate the KCS. So
Yeah.
Nice.
we'll get it
Okay,
all
so
done in a
yeah.
workflow that way, right? Versus being really points in the workflow for different tooling implementations. So yeah, we're going down that path a bit, and kind of the hallucination aspects are minimized by the size of the model. Like, she's probably talking about models that are like 8 billion data points, right? And that sounds like a lot to people, but like ChatGPT, for instance, is like 18 trillion or something like that data points, right? Or maybe even more than that. The more data points you get, the more likely hallucination you get. So that's where you start talking about like 7 billion, 8 billion data points in a model like a Granite or a Mistral or something like that. You're now talking about things that are much more trained and specific to your model with your data set and less likely to hallucinate on you, basically. So
That's why you heard, I think, Cisco talk about a model for each problem.
Yes.
yeah,
Yep.
they're
Very
doing the same
limited
type of
models,
thing.
yep.
Some, he's got one of the big models too for
Yeah,
OpenAI.
yeah,
I don't know how he does that. He's got more time.
Somebody's got their hand up.
Oh, yes, online.
Yeah, hi. Can you hear me fine?
We
Yes.
can.
Okay, good. Yes, this discussion is extremely helpful. So in terms of case summarization, that is something that we are trying as well in Software AG. What I want to understand is, I have heard both things, that with case summarization, is one of the sweet spots of generative AI. My question is, how much of the case summarization or the effectiveness of the AI to summarize case accurately depends on the information which is contained within the ticket? And how much do you have to train the model to be domain aware? So do you have to make sure that it understands the attendant, products, external knowledge to the ticket, or typically it's pretty straightforward for generative AI to summarize something within the ticket already.
If anybody knows the answer to that, we're looking for it.
I would say to some extent it's dependent on, like you saw the re-ranking stuff that AI does for us at Red Hat. That's kind of foundational. So you got to start with, is it new or known, right? Is it a known issue? If it's a known issue, you already got a solution. If it's new, that's where you got to head down this pathway of creating more content around it. Then as you get into the case lifecycle, like ultimately your summarization, it does become very dependent on contextualization, right? So otherwise it just doesn't quite make sense. That's kind of what we see is like sometimes we look at it like, it doesn't quite make sense, because we've been working through some stuff with Incubate, we've tried out some different stuff here and there, but it's not quite where we want it to be. And then it's, okay, the fields, how they're possibly used in different ways, training your model to pick that stuff up. And then remember the models that we're using are already trained on like our KCS and stuff like this as well. So like we set a foundation for kind of leaning in, like a build, I think, and highlight this, the data all builds on top of each other. And that's a key component in our minds for kind of how we get to the end state where we want to be for the whole draft KCS.
I think one thing that just came to my mind is we've been playing with a couple projects as far as case summarization. Using things outside of the case, like Slack, was actually, we got much more contextual information out of the conversations that happened in Slack than we did out of the case notes. And so, in fact, I think a couple of the tests that they ran basically didn't even connect to the case notes. and use like a group chat that was on a specific case. And it was able to, and I can't remember if we were doing case summarization or like an RCA template. I think it was maybe an RCA template. But it like pulled the context beautifully. We did something that was connected just to the case, and it was much clunkier because it wasn't able to take the context around a specific term or, you know, an acronym or something that you may be able to more easily get from like a Slack, a chat channel or something like that. So that was one thing that I observed based on that piece.
Yes, I mean, data is the number one ingredient
Right.
in all of this. Possibly number one challenge in some cases as well. But I think as we go forward with this, I mean, we're just gonna continue to test and iterate and evaluate on what we learn with different data sources. I think we have to consider that workflow might need to change or templates might need to change, you know, longer term to help support the value of the model and meet sort of the productivity gains that we want to give our TSEs. So I'll move on. How did we at least get that much done? In a wild 10 months. We talk about this as making bets. I really shy away from calling this a roadmap. The expectations are just different. Bet making implies there is risk. It's always there. It could always fail. It's likely to fail. One of our leading indicators, my tech lead, one of our leading indicators for are we achieving what we set out to do in our team is like, how many failed experiments do we have? We probably don't have enough experiment velocity if we aren't seeing those stack up. They're very valuable for us to learn from. So when we start, it's critical to have everyone clear on the goal. There's a jillion ways that we can go about it, but if we are clear on the business outcome we are seeking, which is an increase in the rate of successful self-solve in a number of these cases, right? How we go about it is where all the meat is and where everyone's contributions can really come into play. But if we start off on the same page, it has been really, really helpful in getting everyone rowing in the same direction. I mentioned this earlier as well. We have chosen to select these early use cases by thinking about them in clusters and really thinking about it from a capability perspective. Like we wanted to develop the retrieval capability to help us put us on path to RAG with the re-ranking part. We want to develop a summarization capability that we can deploy against various use cases across our organization and business needs. And so we decided to tackle that by looking at our most well understood workflows and where we readily had data available. Low-hanging fruit, basically. And use those to learn from as we move towards more and more sophisticated, more and more complex types of opportunities. I use bet making because adaptation is critical. We frequently get a random roadblock when we're just about to be done with the implementation. The model is deprecated. That just happened with our KCS snippets. The Mistral model that we were using, just used in the evaluation, was deprecated with 1 week notice. We just switched to the next one. But it's that willingness to flex and not feel so rigid, and the support in terms of taking risk. We've been asked to be bold. That means some things will break. Our exec put it to me as, I'd much rather have a conversation with a customer who's annoyed about something breaking on the customer portal, or whatever complaint they have about how we've engaged with them, by saying, I'm really sorry, we're trying to improve all of these tools, rather than not doing anything and leaving the experience as, this is as good as you're gonna get from us, right? We're not iterating, and so we really do have that backup and support. Which makes the team feel safe to go off and explore. Okay, I called this like, watch out for shiny objects. This is the one shiny object you want to create. The data.
Yes.
It has historically, I came from our enterprise data and analytics organization, so maybe I have a little bias. It is historically underinvested. It's not sexy. Ugh, data, garbage in, garbage out. We all say that. Yes, we have to do something to make it better. It does not fix itself. And often it requires a lot of alignment and possibly controls to be put in place in other systems that help you keep it clean from its entry point. And in my opinion, if you are unwilling to, what we did is link arms in our meeting where we decided to make this investment, we are going to parallel invest with the same energy in AI as we will in data and data management. You can't get the outcomes from AI if you don't have the data that you trust to put in it. We are starting, as we have other changes happening in systems or new data sources becoming available, we are starting to consider AI and data needs as a separate category of requirements. We need to think a little bit differently about how we structure the data and how we think about what we will need. That is exact indicator, for example, it's one little checkbox, but that is the thing that provides the link for the model of question and answer, which is critical to actually providing the most relevant item. So just, it's a different way of thinking about how some of this information could be used to support your AI use cases either now or into the future. So we're starting to think about them as a separate sort of part of requirements. And then just back to my, call me on my soapbox, but transparency. It's just, we have nothing to hide. There's nothing sneaky about what we're doing. We publish blogs internally. We publish demos in progress and during the evaluation phases of the model. We have documented all of those baseline measures. Like I said, the SQL query or whatever other, if it's on Tableau or something like that, we publish it. You can go reproduce it for yourself if you'd like. And we really do that to help explain the why behind the decisions that have occurred based on, this information that we've gathered, these learnings that we've captured along the way.
That's pretty good, right? Because generally you're dealing with the fear of AI, right? But now you're being very transparent, you're communicating, you're given the opportunity for people to feed into or be a part of it. It's really good.
We call it, internally we use the phrase AI assisted workflows. That's basically what we call it.
Yeah.
Okay, I made this little acronym because I really think these are like the things that have helped us be successful in a really short amount of time. So we prioritize both the capability and the use cases. You can develop a capability and attach 5 use cases to it and improve the capability with each one, but you have something to build on and some data that's already been used and measures already in place. Resist. Of my team, they're probably sick of hearing me say scope management. No scope creep allowed. The smallest thing you can start with is the best. You can add really quickly after you've got the pattern worked out. And I personally really fight to protect my team's capacity. We're small, not as small as David's, but we're small, we tend to be single-threaded right now, and just buckle down every 3-week sprint. We come up for air, and then we buckle down again. And frankly, like, everyone is interested in this all the time, and so we've started having what we call a data and AI open forum. Our entire organization is invited. It's like a mini lightning talks on what we've been doing, what the incubating teams have been doing from around the organization. And then it's just more like an AMA. It's a very informal, talk about cool AI things if we want type of deal, but to really try to tamp down on the one individual ping, hey, can we meet to talk about this? Can you show me how you did that? We want to, but got to keep them focused. So we're using this kind of bigger forum to direct all of that interest and desire to be connected there. Insist on experimentation. This is the risk part as well. Like, try it out. We don't know if it's going to work. This is the first time we're doing them always right now. We're the first ones actually with production level AI solution out and exposed to customers. That's not in a product. Map your dependencies. I have led projects for a long time, let's say. AI work and solutions have some of the most complex handoffs I have ever seen. There are so many people involved, so many different skill sets, so many perspectives and interests to be represented that all roll up into a tweet length summary, that Gen AI wrote. It seems kind of crazy when you think about it like that, but what we've done is just really be clear about who our stakeholders are, who has decision-making authority, and how do we get unblocked especially in those focus periods. I don't own customer portal. I don't own search engineering. I don't own support. I need all of them to, one, be involved and make this solution work for them and be effective. And I need them to have capacity in their backlog to do the work. So it's really a complex set of stakeholders in delivering this work. Explain your measurements, early learnings, and decisions. Just like I was harping on before about the transparency. It's a requirement at Red Hat. That's the open organization anyway. But show your work. Show your work. And that also provides another place for people to give feedback or to learn. And data. Make it your friend, not your enemy. You draft off the momentum that AI has right now. That's what I've been doing. It's just wrap up the data needs in our AI solutions. And I'm excited that it seems to be helping us address some of our long-held issues that we've wanted to fix and couldn't get attention on or investment in or whatever. Make it shiny with AI around it. And we found that successful. So that's all I have for you.
I will note like the model of Mandy taking production and us incubating. We only fell into it last fall, right? So
Yeah.
it was well after we started on this journey. But what we figured out is we had no idea how do you take these shiny AI, Gen AI things into production? Because do we have AI ML? Sure we do, but now the point is replacing it with Gen AI, and what can we do there? Like we had no true okay, how do you coalesce all these different parts that have to be done with key stakeholders in the prime model? And it's fortunate for me as a business because I don't have time to spend on that. But it's when we put Mandy's team in place, okay, you're going to do the production implementation. And we have a bunch of other things that we're testing. We always start with the premise, I don't know if we can do it, let's go find out, right? So we've got some crazy stuff out there that we're scratching our heads about. Maybe we'll be able to do it. Looks like to some extent, some way, shape, or form, we can do some of it at least, right? It's kind of what we kind of see from almost everything we ask of ourselves, can we do this type of thing? But I think we've got a list of how many things?
that we just.
When we first put out a call for ideas,
Yeah.
like last summer, I think the first round of submissions was like 120.
And then it was
I mean-
prioritizing what we